It begins with stillness, not silence, but something deeper. The kind of stillness that wraps around the bones of an old house long abandoned. The moonlight barely touches the rooftops of what once was a village, now veiled in fog and memory. You are there, though you do not belong. The night has weight, like wet cloth on skin, and even your breath feels intrusive. Somewhere in that mist, a sound begins to tremble. Not a voice, not the rustle of leaves, but a single note, drawn from the gut string of a shamisen, played with hands that have forgotten how to hope. You listen, not because the melody is beautiful, but because it feels like a wound that sings. The air doesn't move, but your chest tightens, as if the sorrow inside that sound has entered your lungs. No one is watching you, yet you feel seen, as if the music has reached across time to find the quiet ache you've hidden behind your eyes. This is no performance. There is no applause waiting at the end. Only the faint echo of a man playing beneath a roof he did not build, for people who no longer remember his name, in a land where remembering has become a dangerous act. He plays not for joy, nor for art. He plays for bread, or the chance of it. He plays to be allowed to stay, to not be noticed, to not be killed. There is no stage, just a crooked stool, a rusted bowl for offerings, and fingers that bleed more often than not. The strings of his instrument are patched with horsehair or twine stolen from broken baskets. Still, the music comes, hesitant, like a child afraid to knock at a stranger's door. Before the roofs burned, before the screams and the smoke, there was this: a man who played, a man who woke each day and chose not to vanish. He did not fight, he did not flee. He simply stayed, among the ashes, beneath the weight of history, inside the hollow left behind when meaning retreats. His songs do not carry his name. They carry the shape of his hunger, the chill of his nights, the quiet panic of staying too long in one place. You hear them now, though you're safe, though your world is warm, and still they reach you. This story is not a legend. It has no heroic arc. It is a pulse inside the earth, a shadow beneath your comfort. It is what remains when history forgets to sweep the corners. It is what happens when a man survives a war he was never asked to fight, by becoming invisible, by becoming sound. You are not here to praise him. You are here to remember, and remembering is enough. Now close your eyes. Let the light go. Let the warmth fade. Let the shamisen guide you, one trembling note at a time, into the war after the war, into a silence shaped like survival, into a life no one wrote down, but that still lives somewhere in the dust between stories. We begin. You play to forget, but the war remembers you. The soldiers didn't come for you. They never do. You're not a samurai. You're not a threat. You're not even a man worth interrogating. You play music, and what could be more harmless than that? A hunched figure on the edge of Aki province, plucking sorrow from wood and string, trading sound for soup, for coin, for the illusion of purpose. You don't ask questions, you don't resist, but that doesn't save you. The war never asks permission to enter your life. It simply arrives, in the form of boots on soil, flames where windows once were, and screams that sound too much like names you used to know. One day you are playing for a wedding, the next for a funeral, the next for no one. The audience disappears not all at once, but in trickles. Conscripted, displaced, dead. You play because you don't know what else to do. You play because stopping would mean listening to the silence that follows. They don't destroy you because they don't care about you. That's worse. One soldier steps over your bowl of coins as if it's gutter trash. Another spits beside your foot. The youngest one smiles, not kindly, but with the smug detachment of someone who knows he'll forget your face before sundown. And still you play, because the moment you stop, you are nothing. Because this sound, these calluses, this ritual of motion is all you have left that belongs to you. The inn burns behind you, and they laugh, not at you exactly, but at the absurdity of melody trying to exist in a world ruled by fire. One even asks for a song before they ride away. You play it. Your hands tremble, but not from fear, from memory, because this song was written before any of them were born, because it deserves to live, even if they don't. No one says thank you. They never do. But they don't kill you either. And that's a kind of mercy you learn to accept without pride. Afterward, when the flames settle into embers and the night returns to its cold hush, you sit alone. You stare at the strings, two snapped, one frayed, the last still humming faintly. Your fingers ache, your knuckles raw. You don't cry. That would imply something has changed. Instead, you press your palm against your chest just to feel your own pulse. Still there, still beating. Not for glory, not for vengeance, just to remind yourself that even forgotten things can endure.
If this story moved you, imagine the ones still waiting to be told. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and join us in the forgotten silence of feudal Japan. History doesn't repeat itself, but it whispers. Don't miss the next echo.
You wake up hungry, with a mouth full of ash and a village that no longer remembers music. The floor is harder than you remember, not because it changed, but because your back did. The mat beneath you is damp, its straw innards swollen with mildew and time, and when you shift, it exhales a sour breath into the room. There is no pillow, only a folded robe that smells faintly of sweat and mold. You slept in your clothes again. You always do. It saves effort, it saves heat, it saves the shame of undressing in a house that no longer feels yours. Outside, the morning stirs with no grace. Gray light bleeds through the paper screens like a wound slowly reopening. You sit up slowly, because anything faster invites dizziness. Your mouth tastes of old tea and something metallic. Hunger, maybe? Or memory? You swish a bit of rainwater between your cheeks just to pretend your body still obeys you. It doesn't. Not really. Your fingers, those same fingers that once danced over strings like wind across rice fields, now crack when they bend. The skin splits. You don't bandage them. Bandages cost coin. And besides, you've played through worse. Your shamisen waits in the corner, its body chipped, its neck worn smooth by years of retreat. You used to tune it with delicate attention, tightening, listening, adjusting. Now the strings are makeshift, twisted from horsehair and fishing line, whatever you could find after the last raid. The bridge sags. You don't blame it. You sag too. You prepare breakfast, though it doesn't deserve the name. a handful of rice rescued from a barrel that smells vaguely of rot and rat droppings. You rinse it with rainwater, stir it into a thin gruel, and heat it over a fire that takes half an hour to coax into life. The result is warm enough to keep your teeth from aching and bland enough to not remember later. You eat slowly, not from reverence, but to delay the hunger that follows. There's no mirror in the house anymore. It shattered months ago, during the last tremor. But you catch glimpses of yourself in the lacquered bowl or in puddles along the roadside. Your face is narrow, not with elegance, but erosion. The cheeks have sunk, the eyes retreat. You still bow when you step outside, though there's no one left to greet. It's habit, it's ritual, it's pretending the world still has rules. The village is quieter each day, less chatter, less clatter, fewer footsteps. The bathhouse closed in autumn, the temple bells stopped in spring. You walk the same path every morning, past the tea house where the old woman used to wave, past the shrine where paper prayers once fluttered like doves. Now the wind rattles them dry, their ink faded, their wishes unanswered. You sit near the bridge and play, not for anyone, not anymore. You play because the silence feels like drowning, and melody, even broken, even fragile, is a kind of breath. The sound drifts over the river, catching on branches, scattering like ashes. Some days a child stops to listen, other days a dog, most days nothing at all. But still, you play. Because the war eats men with fire and blade, but it chews slower through those who remain.
You have a body, and the body has limits, but grief has none. You try to warm your hands by the fire, but the coals are barely breathing. What glows beneath the ash is not heat, it's memory. You hold your fingers close, as if proximity alone might deceive the cold. They no longer bend like they used to. The joints rebel, the knuckles swell. Sometimes you wonder if your hands are still yours, or if they've been borrowed from someone older, someone already forgotten. The floorboards groan when you walk, not from weight. You've lost too much for that, but from age. Yours or theirs, it's hard to tell. You bow as you leave each room, even though the house is empty, even though it's barely a house. A sagging roof, a door that no longer locks, but the gesture remains, as if respect could restore walls, as if ritual could protect you from weather and memory alike. The basin in the corner holds water so cold it stings. You wash your face anyway, not to be clean, but to feel something. The cloth scrapes like sandpaper. The dirt never really lifts. It's not from outside, it's deeper, worn into you like the callus on your thumb, where the bocce used to rest when you played with purpose. Now you play with hesitation, with fear, with apology. You no longer own a mirror, but you still know the creases around your eyes. They've deepened, not with laughter, but with squinting, with scanning the horizon for soldiers, for fire, for the next silence to swallow someone you know. You've stopped calling it grief. Grief implies an end, a cycle, a conclusion. What you feel is more like fog, always there, always settling deeper into your chest. Even monks flinch when you pass, not because you've sinned, but because you remind them what happens when the gods stop listening. You look like tomorrow, they say, and tomorrow terrifies everyone now. You try to sleep some nights, you truly do, but your body no longer believes in rest. You close your eyes and hear footsteps that never arrive.
You startle at shadows that forget to vanish with the light. The dreams are worse, not because they're violent, but because they're soft. They show you rice that's warm, clothes that don't itch, rooms with laughter. You wake up with a mouth full of longing, and the taste lingers longer than it should. Once, music felt sacred, like prayer, like defiance. Now it's just survival, a way to convince your lungs to keep working. You pluck a string not for beauty, but for proof that your fingers still move, that your breath still stirs the dust. And still, you bow before playing, even if no one's watching, because habit is the last dignity no war can burn.
In a world at war, the quiet man with the instrument was the most suspicious of all. You carry no sword. That alone makes you dangerous. They don't say it aloud, of course. They smile, tightly, like rope about to snap. They ask questions that sound like kindness, but taste like metal. Where are you from? Why do you wander? What's hidden inside that box you carry? Your shamisen to them might as well be a weapon. And perhaps it is, the kind that stirs memory instead of spilling blood. But memory is unwelcome here. It makes people pause, and pauses get people killed. You smile just enough to seem harmless, not too much. Too much joy is a sign of guilt. Too little, a sign of secrets. You speak softly, not too soft. They'll think you're plotting. Not too loud. They'll think you're mocking. Every word is a balancing act between ignorance and intent. In one village, a soldier asked you to play. His eyes were red, not from drink, but from things he wouldn't say. You played a lullaby, slow, tender, woven from the notes your mother once hummed while threading straw mats. He stared at the fire and didn't blink. When you finished, he nodded once and walked away. By morning, the inn was ashes. They said it was bandits, but you know soldiers don't like to leave traces. Feelings are a kind of debt, and war hates anything it owes. You learned to play with detachment. No flourishes, no passion, just enough rhythm to pass for background noise. People feel safer when beauty is accidental. Anything deliberate becomes a threat, a message, a memory, a mirror. Once, in a town near the coast, a young boy tried to mimic you, made his own shamisen from scrap wood and fishing line. You smiled, he smiled, his father did not. That night, you heard the boy cry. The next morning, he wouldn't meet your eyes. Neither would his mother. You moved on. That's what survivors do, not out of cowardice, but because your presence stains more than your absence. You're not hunted, you're not chased, you're simply unwelcome. You exist like a crack in a teacup, tolerated but no longer trusted. You offer music when others offer violence, and that confuses people. A blade, they understand. A melody, that lingers, that festers, that remembers them too clearly. So you keep walking, town to town, face to face, each one convinced they've never seen you before. And maybe they haven't, or maybe they just don't want to admit they have, because if they remember you, they'll have to remember what they did while your song played.
You don't live days. You repeat them until they blur like old ink. You wake before the light touches the floor, not because you want to, but because the cold shakes you out of sleep like a hand on your throat. The blanket, if you can call it that, is damp in the corners, stiff in the middle. Your breath hangs in the air like a ghost who refuses to leave. You sit up slowly,
bones creaking like old wood, joints swollen from years of crouching by doors that never opened. First, you patch the robe, always the robe, threadbare at the collar, unraveling at the hem. Each stitch a prayer not for beauty, but for delay, just one more day before it becomes indecent. You mend it with fishing line now, since needles are too expensive, and real thread has become a kind of luxury, like soap or second chances. Breakfast, if you can call it that, is ash stirred into rainwater. You call it soup so the shame doesn't cling so tightly to your tongue. Sometimes you'll chew a leaf just to remember what texture feels like. On rare mornings, you find a scrap of moldy rice in your sleeve. You don't ask how it got there. You just eat. Then comes the walk. Same street, same tea house, same spot by the broken post, where once, decades ago, you played for lovers and merchants and drunkards who cried at your chorus and paid you in coin or kisses or rice wrapped in cloth. Now, no one stops. You still sit. You still play. Not because they listen, but because if you stop, you might hear yourself. The songs blur. They all sound like mourning now. You don't remember the titles. You don't need to. The strings know the path better than you do. One song bleeds into another, like seasons that no longer change. The melody is your shadow, thinner than it once was, but still following, still clinging to your heels like a child too afraid to speak. Sometimes a dog wanders past. You watch it chew on something fresher than your last meal. You envy it, not the meat, but the ignorance. A dog does not remember fire, or war, or the girl who once danced while you played, barefoot in the dust, before her village turned to smoke. You trade a tune for a heel of crust, maybe a sip of cold tea if the owner is feeling nostalgic. You don't ask questions, you bow, always bow, even when your back aches, even when your pride frays with every bend. Because they won't kill a man who knows how to disappear politely. At night, you return to the same hut, a lean-to now, really, patched with paper and regret. You sleep with your back to the door, though nothing valuable remains to steal. It's habit, or hope, or fear. You don't know anymore. You close your eyes and recite the names of the towns you've passed through, like beads on a rosary of ruin. Most of them are gone now. And yet, you wake again. That is the cruelty. Not death, but the repetition of breath. Another morning, another song no one asked for. Another day you don't remember surviving.
Some men survived the war without ever fighting, but not without scars. There is a shamisen on display in a museum. The wood is split down the center, as if it tried to scream and never quite finished. One of the tuning pegs is missing, and the body bears the soft warping of heat, perhaps a fire, or just time. There is no name carved into the lacquer, no plaque telling the story, just a glass case and a silence thicker than explanation. Visitors pass by, glance for a moment, and move on. They don't hear the songs buried in the grain, but you do. Maybe he lived to be old, maybe not. Maybe one night, in a winter so still it could have been mistaken for death, he laid down in the snow, no longer cold, because the cold had become part of him. Maybe the snow fell softly on his body and mistook it for earth. Or maybe he simply stopped walking, and the world, in its hunger for spectacle, forgot him entirely. And yet, even now, As you lie in your warm bed, sheets tucked neatly around you, fingers untouched by frost or splinters, something lingers. A shadow in the hush between heartbeats, a thin string plucked somewhere inside your chest. Not a song, not quite, but an ache shaped like memory. You do not know his name. That's the point. He is everyone who was never famous enough to write history, but too stubborn to vanish quietly. He is the man behind the songs that soothed soldiers and outlived temples, the one who survived not by fighting, but by playing, until his strings broke, and even then, by humming. His story is not heroic, but it is real. It lived in the calluses of his fingers, in the holes worn through his sandals, in the way he bowed even to dogs. It lived in every silence where music should have been, and every room where no one clapped. And now, for one night, in this stillness you've chosen to enter, you carry it. Not to save it, not to honor it, but simply to feel the weight of those who endured without witnesses. Not all survivors are heroes. Some are just too tired to die. Let that stay with you. Let it hum beneath your skin long after the sound fades.
If the echoes of feudal Japan stirred something in you, don't let the story end here. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and walk with us deeper into history's shadows. Your next journey awaits.